Hey there, Simone here with Bulletproof Business Growth, as always with some ideas and insights, what to pay attention to when you're really growing and scaling your business. Now, what I want to talk today about how to get your time back, as in how to manage your time instead of having your time manage you. And that's the first law in terms of cutting down on overwhelm and stress, because what I see over and over is there's always more to do than there's actually time. Now, the dangerous part and the part that we really need to address about this is because when that happens, that means what most of your time is going into, probably 80-90%, is you fighting fires, fixing mistakes, addressing emergencies, all that kind of stuff that happens all day in the chaos of business. And what's not getting any of your time is the stuff that actually matters, which is your CEO work. So that means getting that vision crystal clear and expand it so that you always know what your roadmap is, making sure that you come up with the strategies that your team needs from you, that you build those relationships that will help you open the doors that you need to open. And then, of course, you need to lead your leaders. So this is when you think about what's the 5% of work that only you can do, because that's what the CEO should be doing. That's the stuff you want to have all your focus and your attention on. And most of the time, what I see in our clients, that's the least of what happens. So it is not about working harder, which you already know. The harder you work, the more overwhelmed and stressed you'll get. And that also means the less effective you'll get. So while for most people, when there's more to do than you think you have time for, the go-to is, I'm going to put in more hours. I'm going to work harder. I'm going to double down. I'm going to chain myself to my desk. I'm going to push through this, because once I do, then there's going to be light at the end of the tunnel and freedom on the other side. Except for that never happens. It's just one hill after another, and you get more and more exhausted. That means you get less and less inspired. That means you less and less can actually do the work you're supposed to be doing, which is your CEO work. So for any of you where more is working, click away from this video, from this podcast, because this is not what we're going to talk about. So for most entrepreneurs, it is really a time where you need a pattern interrupt, because you've tried the more and more approach. You've probably been trying it for years, and all that's given you is some health problems, a rocky marriage, and you might not love your business anymore. So for any of you who want a better approach, humor me here, because I'm going to say some stuff that might not make sense on first listen. But what we really need here is, like I said, a pattern interrupt. And that means you have to make the choice to work less, to do the opposite, to force yourself to do the things that'll actually build you up and make you healthier and more able to focus, so that you can get more done in less time. So this might sound like madness, but what we're really going for here is a short shock therapy, if you will. And then I'm going to explain what we'll need to do that will actually make this not madness, but a very effective method of resetting first and then approaching the thing a little differently. So the work less, accomplish more is really what we're going here for, because most of the time it's not really that you have a time shortage. What you really have a shortage in focus and inspiration and in motivation. So that means we have to approach the sucker a little differently. So we want to help the work feel smaller to make it more enjoyable. Because what we want to get away from is the kind of resentful grinding. And all of you love what you do, most of you. And many of you say you love working, you don't want to work less. But the point is that you need some balance in the way you spend your time so you can be that effective entrepreneur, business owner, CEO, whatever you prefer to think of yourself. But we need to make this time very, very focused. So step one in this is really take control of your schedule, because you need to get focused, which also means you need to know what to let go of. So what I like to do is I like to work after Parkinson's law. And what that law says is work will expand to fill the time available. So the shock therapy is going to be, you're going to look at your day and go, all right, I usually work 10-hour days. So what I invite you to do is go, all right, I'm going to cut that time by 30%. So that means you're going to be working 6-7 hours. And so you have those 6 or 7 hours available. And I'm not saying do this forever. I say do this for a few days. And then I want you to actually fill the rest of your time with something that you love doing, like meet with your friends, spend time with your partner, go for a hike, whatever it is that's not work related. So now we're going to take the rest of that time and make it super effective. So Parkinson's law, like I just said, work fills whatever time you give it. So we want to make sure that we schedule really tight deadlines throughout the day. So make your tasks small and make them focused. Maybe when you think something will take you 3 hours, allow for 25 minutes and see what you get done. Because the problem is when you are giving yourself a whole lot of time, or you're not giving yourself a parameter on the time, you can get really unfocused. You can get really distracted. You can spend all sorts of time that contribute nothing to the task at hand. So look at what you're doing and pick impossibly small time periods to get this stuff done. Just try it. The other thing you want to do is batch distractions. And everybody's favorite distraction they love to talk about is email. It takes up a ton of all of our time. And it's incredibly necessary. It's something, it's a necessary evil. So what I want to invite you to do is really be disciplined about this. Check your email at most 3 times a day. So this is what that does. It keeps you away from constant content switching. And, when you content switch all the time, people may think they're good at multitasking. They may think they're good at switching content, but for your brain, it's very difficult to do, because it actually means every time you content switch, it's like a restart. It needs to kind of get whirring again, get to a place where it's at baseline, and then it can start to focus. So you're losing a lot of time in between. So whatever stuff is that, like email, that you have to get done, that occurs all day long, batch those distractions into time periods where you can actually get them done and they don't distract you from the rest of the stuff that you want to do. Then the other thing is I love to apply the 2-minute rule. So throughout the day, as things come up, just take note. When there's something that just takes less than 2 minutes to do it now. Because the problem is, if you just keep pushing it along, it starts piling up. And then in your mind, in your brain, it starts to be this big chunk of all these things that you need to get done. And it wears away on your time, of course, but your energy and your focus, most importantly. It completely restricts your bandwidth. So keep knocking out those tiny tasks, those less than 2-minute tasks as they come up, so that they don't end up on your to-do list, making that to-do list impossibly long and impossibly hard to tackle. So this cuts down on procrastination, and you'll feel like you're constantly actually checking things off the list that are really important to do. The other thing we want to do is, of course, automate as many things as possible. So I really want you to look at all the things that you do on a consistent basis and look at how many things are you doing manually right now, that if you spend a little time on the front end, you could plug into some sort of software system and it could take care of those things for you very easily with the click of a button, instead of somebody slogging away at it, you having to explain it to somebody, anybody really having their brain power on that. So be honest with yourself. I just talked to somebody the other day who was still taking manual notes, who was still doing handwriting and transcribing and keeping handwritten notes. I was like, okay, you need to change that. So that might be an extreme example, but many of us are still doing things manually that really don't need to be that way. And yes, it'll take time on the front end, but when you buy into that and spend the time on the front end, you'll be so much better off for time to come after that. So now we had the automating. Then the other thing that you want to do is you want to leverage your most productive time towards the AM and the PM. So, and this is going to be a little bit different for everybody, because some people are really good early in the morning, right when they wake up. Some people need a little longer to actually get their brain in gear. So I invite you to pay attention to what your most productive times are. It's like, for me, it's generally kind of mid to late morning and then kind of early evening. So I pick those times for my productive time for the most important stuff that I do. So make really sure that you have that time set aside for the stuff that really matters. So we want to make sure that's happening. And think about it like this. When you spend the time in the morning really preparing and planning, then your day is going to be set up much, much better. So that already sets you up with your leg up. You're doing really well. And then the evening time you can use to kind of give yourself a little feedback, wrap up your day, and make sure that you put everything in place that will make tomorrow even more productive. So sometimes just spending those extra 5 to 10 minutes at the end of the day, making sure that you wrap things up, will really help to set you up much better for the rest of the day. Sometimes that's a little admin, sometimes it's just whatever it is to kind of make sure that you got all your T's crossed and I's dotted. And then for most of our clients, one of the things that I immediately recommend is that they hire an assistant who can take a lot of the busy work off their plates and who can think for them. So for a lot of you who don't necessarily have a second in command yet, think of that person as, this is the person who's going to get you there. So this is the person who can take care even of your personal stuff. They can take care of your office stuff. They can take care of certain team things. This is the person who kind of makes sure all the loose ends aren't loose anymore. So that hire is, when you do it right, is one of the most time saving and bandwidth saving and focus producing hires that you could ever make. So get a really good assistant. And the last thing I want to say is, meetings are one of those things that I don't want to call them a necessary evil, because they're not evil. They're really well spent, productive time when you do them right. And most people don't know how to prepare them right. Most people don't know how to have them right. Most people don't know really how to get the right outcomes out of that. But when you do it right, this can save a ton of your time, because when you have a good leadership meeting and when you have a really good way of supporting your leaders in your company, that means there's leadership on every level. That means there is no silos. That means there's good communication. That means there's a lot of transparency. And with that one leadership meeting, you can make sure that everybody gets on the same page. Everybody has the information that they need, and everybody is actually collaborative with each other to get problems solved. So instead of having all these side conversations with everybody, which takes up tons more time, I invite you to get into a very good meeting cadence and learn how to have good meetings so that you can save a ton of time on the back end of these. Same thing with your one-on-ones that you really need to have to support and grow your people. So it's really about when you want to cut stress, it means not working more. It means having really good systems and then having the discipline and the willpower to employ those systems. Because everything we're talking about, what's super important is consistency. You can't just do this for a week and expect that it'll work. So we want to employ that shock therapy that I said, where for a few days, a week, you work much fewer hours and you use the time that you regain to actually build yourself up, get some rest, start enjoying again, and then plug in these systems that I just talked about so that you can really be more productive with the time that you spend. And you'll be really surprised to find that pretty soon you will organically have to spend less time getting done what you need to get done. So it's really making sure that you free up your best hours for that high impact work so that you can actually do the things that matter. So I hope this helps. Have a fabulous rest of the week, and I will see you next time. Oh, we have a brand new training out that will explain all this in detail. So go to bulletproofbusinessgrowth.com, bulletproofbusinessgrowth.com/leap, and check out the new training. I'll talk to you soon.